Do you feel too much? Have you been crying for pain that doesn't even understand, an inexplicable sadness that arises out of nowhere, or an anxiety that seems to have no reason in your own life? Maybe this pain is not yours, and this video will show you why. At the end of this journey, you will understand the true role of draw according to Bert Hellinger's systemic view, and, most importantly, how to break free from pain that does not belong to you, making room to live your own life with more lightness and purpose. Get ready for deep immersion in yourself, an internal journey that can transform your way of feeling the world. This is an invitation to look beyond what your eyes see and what your rational mind understands, to touch the deepest roots of your sensitivity. When sensitivity becomes an unbearable weight, it is crucial to look at the hidden dynamics that feed it. Often, what we interpret as exaggerated empathy or hypersensitivity is, in fact, a systemic entanglement, an unconscious loyalty to destinations or feelings that do not belong to us. Bert Hellinger has taught us that by a primordial and often unconscious love, the child can merge emotionally to one of his parents, assuming loads that should be theirs. Imagine a child so deeply connected to the mother that, in realizing the sadness, frustration, or lack the mother feels, absorbs these emotions as if they were yours. This child, moved by a loving impulse to relieve the mother's pain, unknowingly becomes emotional regulator of the home. Not only does she feel emotions, she internalizes them and lives them as if they were their own life experience. It is as if this child became a glass overflowing with the water of others. Instead of flowing her own water, her own essence, she is filled with the emotions of others to the point of extravasate, not knowing where so much anguish comes from. This fusion prevents the child from developing his own emotional identity and his own limits. It remains in a kind of constant resonance with parental suffering. Think of a river that, instead of following its own course freely, tries to divert its water to fill all small streams and puddles around, becoming cloudy, heavy, and clear direction. This is the life of a tangled draw. Its vital energy is drained to support a compensation system that does not belong to it. Hellinger pointed out that this dynamic, although born of love, prevents growth and autonomy. The child remains fixed on a role that is not hers, and this fixation manifests itself in adulthood as an inability to differentiate his own emotions from the other's emotions. She cries tears that are not her own, feels fears that do not belong to her, and carries bales that came from long before her existence. The value you gain in understanding this is immense. The clarity that certain pain and behavioral patterns are not inherent in your personality, but a reflection of deep family dynamics. This perception is the first step in starting to get rid of, to return what is not yours, and to finally breathe your own life. It is as if, by understanding the source of the water, you could choose not to drink from it, or rather channel it to your own garden. The tie is often the family member who perceives and feels the absences and unresolved pains of past generations. It is the radar of the system, but this capacity can become a heavy burden when there is no conscience. For example, a person may feel a deep sadness on specific dates, such as birthdays of deceased loved ones they have never known, or at times of the year that marked family tragedies. She does not understand why this melancholy, but her body, her soul, is connected to this systemic memory. The hypersensitivity of tie is not a weakness. It is a sign of a deep connection, but it needs to be directed and understood. When this connection becomes a tangle, the draw comes to live a life that, in part, is not yours, acting a role of scapegoat or shock absorber of pain of others. By recognizing that this sensitivity can be a reflection of an inherited destination, you open the door to a new way of relating to your emotions. You learn to honor what came before without having to carry it. This is the first insight that can start to release it. These pains we carry, even unknowingly, often come from profound, invisible loyalties that connect us to destinations and suffering from our ancestors. Hellinger has shown us that the soul, for love, seeks to compensate or complete what was unfinished in previous generations. Imagine a granddaughter who, since he was very young, has an inexplicable anxiety, a constant anguish that finds no apparent origin in his own life, in his events or personal experiences. She seeks help, tries to understand her own phobias and fears, but nothing seems to explain the depth of her suffering. When we look at family history with the eyes of family constellations, we found that his paternal grandfather went to war, lived deep trauma of combat, experiencing unspeakable losses and horrors that left him with chronic anxiety and a constant fear. This pain, not processed and not healed by it, echoes in the family system. From a deep and unconscious loyalty, the granddaughter assumes this load, as if in her heart she said, "For the sake of you, I suffer too. I carry what you could not carry." This dynamic is as if you were carrying a backpack full of stones that belong to someone else, without even knowing where they came from or why they are there. Each stone represents suffering, trauma, mourning not lived by an ancestor. You feel the weight, the overload, but you don't understand the cause. The soul of Tai, in its deep connection with the system, captures these resonances and internalizes them. It is a form of love, of belonging, but a love that becomes a burden and prevents the individual from living his own fullness. Hellinger insisted that recognizing these loyalties is the first step towards healing. It is not about blaming the ancestors, but of honoring what was lived by them, and at the same time, returning the loads that do not belong to them. This releases you to follow your own destination, without the unconscious obligation to repeat or compensate for the past. It is like untying an invisible knot that held his foot, preventing him from walking freely in his own direction. Think of another situation, a child who feels anger and constant frustration, even in situations that do not justify such intensity. In investigating family history, it is found that a grandfather was wronged, lost lands, or was prevented from achieving their dreams by force majeure, and this anger was never expressed or resolved. The son, out of loyalty, carries this emotion, unconsciously trying to give vent to what was repressed. It is an echo of history, a silent cry that manifests itself through you. The ties, for its sensitivity, captures these energetic remnants and internalize them, mixing them with their own emotions until they become indistinguishable. The beauty of understanding this is that you no longer have to identify yourself with these heavy emotions. You can recognize them, give them a place of honor in the history of your family, and then, with respect, return them to those who actually belong. This is not a lack of love, but an act of greater love, to release yourself and, consequently, to release the system. In doing so, you allow life, to its fullness, flow to you and the next generations without the weights of the past. And when love becomes load, it is the painful reality of Tai that, by an internal compulsion, is repeatedly related to injured, helpless, or problematic people, unconsciously seeking the other's salvation or healing. This dynamic has deep roots in childhood. Imagine a child who, by witnessing the pain, vulnerability, or sadness of one of his parents, has learned that healing others is the way of being loved or being seen. This child may have been responsible for the happiness or well-being of his caregivers. She learned to buy affection and recognition through sacrifice and self-activation. This belief, internalized, accompanies her to adulthood, boosting her to seek partners or friends who seem to need salvation. She believes, at the bottom of her being, that her value lies in her ability to relieve the suffering of others. Love, for her, becomes synonymous with sacrifice, of constant effort to fix what is broken in the other. But Hellinger warned us about the dangers of this dynamic. Whoever tries to save takes the place of the fate of the other. This phrase is a powerful reminder that each individual has his own destiny, his own way of learning, and his own responsibilities. When we try to save someone, we are, in a way, usurping their growth process, taking the opportunity to face their own challenges and learn from them. It is the illusion that we can change the course of one's life, that our love is so powerful that it can rescue the other from oneself or its circumstances. This posture is not only exhausting to draw, but is also paradoxically encompassing for the person being saved. It perpetuates a cycle of dependence and prevents both individuals from growing in its fullness. Savior, runs out and saved, does not find its own strength. Think of the archetypal myth of the injured curator, Chiron, the wise centaur of Greek mythology. Even though he is a great master and healer, capable of relieving the suffering of many, Chiron carried his own incurable wound. He could heal others, but not himself. This symbolic story shows us a deep truth. There are limits to how much we can intervene in the destination of others. True love is not about saving or fixed. It is about accepting the other as he is, with his challenges in his own way. Recognizing this dynamic in your own life is the first step in stopping nullifying yourself in the exhaustive attempt to fix what is not up to you. What a relief is to realize that you don't have to carry the world on your back, nor be the emotional firefighter of everyone around you to be loved. True love is born of freedom and mutual respect, not the need for redemption. And by freeing yourself from this compulsion, you make room for more balanced and healthy relationships where love flows and does not weigh. Many times you feel what is not yours because, without realizing it, you are vibrating at someone else's fate or tangle with the suffering of others. The tie, due to its profound sensitivity and resonance capacity, can become, without awareness, a kind of antenna for the pain and unresolved destinations of other members of the family, alive or deceased. It absorbs these energies and processes them internally as if they were their own. It is as if your energy field is excessively open, without filters, allowing all the emotions and experiences around you. This can manifest itself as a constant feeling of weight, sadness, guilt, anger, or anxiety, without a recent personal event that justifies such intensity. You feel the pain, but there is no apparent cause in your life. To begin to break free from this overload and reestablish your own energy limits, a powerful and liberating phrase, inspired by Hellinger's Family Constellations, is, "I leave with you what you're. Now, I follow with what belongs to me." This phrase is not just a set of words. It is a deep act of recognition and separation. It is a movement of the soul that honors the fate of the other, recognizing that pain or burden belongs to him, and at the same time states his own right to live his life without carrying what is not his own. Saying this phrase, even internally, is an invitation to your internal system and the family system to reorganize this dynamic. It is a limit that you set for the flow of the energies that invade you. Imagine the metaphor of the forest of the mirrors. Ties like someone who walks through this forest, and instead of seeing his own reflection and his own identity, he sees himself in all mirrors, absorbing each reflection of others' joys, their pains, their challenges, their expectations. He is lost in the identity of others, absorbing his stories and emotions to the point of forgetting who he really is, what his own essence is. It is as if the image itself became a blur, overloaded by the multiple reflexes of others. This confusion of identities prevents a life that is truly yours, based on its own desires, needs, and purposes. He lives in part the life of another. By pronouncing the healing phrase and practicing the visualization that you are returning what is not yours, you begin to lighten your own image in these mirrors. You begin to differentiate yourself, to build an invisible but powerful border between you and the external world. This does not mean closing for empathy, but practicing conscious and healthy empathy, where you can feel and understand the other, but without contaminating or overwhelming. It's like watching the clouds in the sky. You see them, recognize them, but you don't have to become one of them. You remain anchored in yourself, in your own land. This is an invitation for you to resume the reins of your own energy in your own life, allowing the light of your own being to shine without the shadows of the destinations of others. By returning what does not belong to you, you open a huge space for your own life and your own experiences with more lightness and authenticity. The pain we inherited can also come from long before, from ancestral systemic loads that echo through generations, influencing our well-being and our emotions that the rational mind often cannot understand. Hellinger has shown us that life is a continuous flow that comes from our ancestors, and with this flow also come the unresolved memories, the unpunished trauma, and the uninformed destinations of our ancestors. Imagine a woman who inexplicably feels a profound sensitivity to female pain, a melancholy that affects her without apparent cause, especially in relation to sadness and crying, as if she carries a hurt that is not yours. When she deepens in the history of her family lineage, she discovers that many women in her family, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, were silenced, could not express their emotions, their mourning were repressed, their shuts, or lived situations of great deprivation and suffering without being able to cry their pains. What was stuck in the past seeks a way of expressing himself in the present. It is as if you are carrying a bag full of letters that were not written by you, but still weigh on your shoulders. Each letter represents an unused emotion, an unveiled secret, an uninvited mourning, an undone injustice of past generations. The tie, due to its innate resonance capacity and keen sensitivity, captures these energetic remnants and internalizing them, mixing them with their own emotions until they become indistinguishable. He may feel a deep anguish for the woman of the family who could never marry, or sudden anger at injustice that hit a distant grandfather. These are the invisible loyalties in action, where the soul, for a love and a sense of belonging, assumes what was not resolved. Hellinger talked about the importance of giving a place to each member of the family system, especially those who were excluded, forgotten, or had difficult destinations. When a member is excluded, either by moral judgment, a secret, or simply because it has been forgotten, the energy of that system seeks to compensate for this exclusion in future generations. and who is often chosen to carry this weight. The most sensitive ties him, the one who feels too much. For example, a child who always feels guilty for no reason may be carrying the unresolved fault of a grandfather who has made a serious mistake in the past. Or a daughter who has difficulty thriving financially can be in loyalty with an ancestor who has lost everything and lived in poverty. Understanding this dynamic is the first step not to be defined by a past that is not yours. It is not about denying the story, but of honoring what came before without having to carry the burden. It is like recognizing that the bag of letters exists, that the stories are real and important, but that you do not need to carry their weight. You can, with respect, recognize these pains and return them to your place of origin, that is, to the family system itself. This does not mean being insensitive or detached. It means loving in a way that allows each one to carry their own destination. In doing so, you release yourself and also release the system so that new possibilities arise. You become a conscious link that can finally close cycles and allow life to flow more lightly to you and future generations. It is an act of deep healing, not only for you, but for all your lineage. The journey of conscious tie is the transformation of being a sponge that absorbs everything in a mirror that reflects, but remains intact. The final phrase, which echoes Nulliad freedom, is, "Now I feel, but I remain in me." Conscious tie is not insensitive. He is discerning. He can feel and deeply understand the pain and emotions of the other, but without merging with them, without being contaminated or overwhelmed. He honors the fate of the other, and at the same time affirms his own right to live his own life. He is a lighthouse that illuminates, but does not drown in the waves. It becomes a safe haven for yourself before trying to be one for each other. This is the true strength. In this profound journey, we explore the complex roots of excessive sensitivity, from invisible loyalties that connect us to ancestral destinations to the illusion of saving each other, which often imprisons us in self-analysis cycles. We have seen as the strength of taking our parents and taking our place in the family hierarchy root us, giving us the support necessary to be mirrors, not further sponges. You have found that you are not alone in your inexplicable pains, and that much of what you feel can actually belong to others, echoing through time and generations. If this video has played something on you, you have resonated in your soul in a deep way, it may be time to take the first step to returning what is not yours, and finally live your own life with lightness, purpose, and authenticity. This is the time to honor your own destiny, to embrace your true strength, and to allow life to flow to you in a new way. The choice is yours.